Snail left out.
He is a paramedic, and he has seen a lot of stuff up people's butts. And so what he does is people will send him random content, and then he'll often just do this, like inside of the ambulance, and go, no. Are we going to talk about female generative systems?
As soon as you stop talking, Joel. Yes.
Shut the fuck up, Nancy. You learn your place as a woman, and you go sit on a chair and start sewing.
This is your weenus.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah. So it's this. Although
everybody grab your weenus. Joel, you know
really?
I've touched scrotums before, right? Because war makes money for our GDP. That is why.
Our goddamn penis.
Welcome to UnPack-It, the unruly and inappropriate show where former cult kids read the books of their former cult. I'm Patti, and I'm here with my sister Nancy. We are the Apostate sisters here on YouTube, and we make this show with our dear friend Joel, who has a TikTok and a YouTube called MisterDiffiCULT. Check him out. All right, so if you've been with us for the last few months at this point, you know that we've been working our way through reading The Missing Dimension in Sex, a sex book provided by our cult leader. So today we're in the middle of chapter 9, and we're starting with the section called The Male Hormones, if you're reading along with us.
All right, the male hormones.
The male hormones.
But before we leave the description of these tiny yet colossal laboratories, which are the testicles, there is still another most important function they perform. They produce also the male hormones.
That's why the male hormones.
These are of vital importance and deserve a brief description. Scattered among these seminiferous tubules are microscopically tiny islands of cells. In these infinitesimal islands, the male hormones are produced. These are not carried through the vas deferens, as are the spermatozoa, but pass directly into the bloodstream and thus circulate through the body.
Oh, yeah.
These male hormones cause changes in the shape of the body. Ooh. I like where this is going. Thus, from the age of puberty, a boy's body develops into the masculine form. Narrow hips, wide shoulders for masculine strength, beard on the face, hair on the chest, and other parts of the body more than is common to females. And that deeper voice. I'm going to turn down. And these hormones directly influence the mind. There are certain pronounced differences between male and female minds, some of which will be explained later, although many of these are generally recognized by all. At least he says generally recognized.
I mean, and it's hormone based. Like, it's not like the minds are just different because of what's between their legs. Come on now.
Well, right. Yes. For example, little girls are interested in dolls and feminine things.
That's right.
Really?
I wasn't. I played with cars and soldiers when I was a kid.
I like to play with dolls.
This
now, I had action figures. I had action figures, but when I did have the opportunity to play with dolls, I loved it. Like with the neighbor girl or with my cousin or something like that. Yep.
Well, when I was in the thick of parenting young children, it was like there was all this stuff coming out about like, what are you afraid of your little boy like playing with a doll? What do you think he's going to happen to him? He's going to like be a good father? Like, fuck off.
So many homophobic people out there.
Yes.
Well, we're working to change that, aren't we?
That's right.
So yeah, apparently little girls are interested in only like dolls and feminine things.
Right. That's right. And they should be. And they should also be interested in playing house and hotel. And laundry service. And laundry service.
My Barbie's just what does that say about me?
uh, that you are expressing a Freudian desire.
Patty, I'm pretty sure I did that with dolls as a kid too. Tried to make them have sex. Yeah.
I
Didn't we
mean,
all do that?
yeah, they had sex and had babies. That was what Barbie did.
Mm.
But that's not that
I
wrong.
never did,
Barbie,
actually. I actually never
Barbie.
did.
Oh no, I mean Barbie was actually based on a porn doll that was from Germany, so like it's not wrong. I'm not
No, I
kidding.
was
It's
just
true.
thinking about with my toys, I never actually did that. I did kissing. Because I don't think I actually knew what full-on sex was at that point.
I was thankfully very informed because Nancy was on the way, and so my mom was like, "You need to know that a penis goes in a vagina." Did I just give it away? I just gave
What?
away chapter 10,
You
guys.
did? Oh no, that was
Whoa.
the missing dimension, and you read
Oh,
ahead.
fuck,
You
it was
read
penis in the vagina the whole
Yes, and it
time?
was
Damn
because
it.
your mother had read this book and had given you this knowledge all the way back when you were a kid, and now you're sharing this knowledge with me now. But the one who never did that with his toys, he never did that with his toys. Maybe that's why I'm gay.
You needed to have Barbies so they could fuck in a heterosexual manner. Except I will say I think this was pretty common to have far more Barbies than Kens. So, I don't know what that says.
So yeah, apparently little girls are interested in dolls and feminine things. Little boys in machines and masculine things. Boys and girls are not sex conscious before the age of puberty in the same manner they become after puberty. Bodily changes become pronounced after puberty. Yet, there are noticeable mind differences in young boys and girls. I think you wanted to say something there, Patty.
I don't know. The whole boys and girls are not sex conscious before the age of puberty.
Mm.
I
Mm.
beg to differ.
I beg to differ too.
This is a weird thing for me because I was not fully sex conscious until 11 years old, is my guess. But my first sexual experiences were when I was 4. And I actively participated in them.
I remember you
out
saying
of instinct. I knew how things kind of sort of operated. Like this is actually something I know about myself. So I actually kind of knew how like nerves were. Like I just naturally was drawn to it. And then I performed an actual like the full act on when I was 8 years old. But I really don't remember. It was really nothing, and everything was like kind of flaccid anyway, because I was 8. But then it was later, a couple weeks later, I found out. I remember telling you this in my interview that I was listening to Rush Limbaugh, and I found out like that I was gay, and that flipped me out. I never actually knew what copulative sex was, like that it actually produced children and all that stuff. I would easily say till I was at least 11 years old. I did not know that. It's weird. It's really weird. Like, because I knew that something happened, but I wasn't sure exactly the whole thing until I was like 11.
I mean, in some ways, that makes more sense the way you learned it because it's like
I didn't know what a condom was.
Well, I mean, obviously, there's more to our bodies and everything, but like as a kid, if you don't understand that as this like separate thing, it's like, oh, it's fun when somebody tickles me. Oh, it's fun when I do that with my cock, like, or whatever you would have called it at the time. But yeah,
I mean,
it's
I
like
didn't even like anyway. I was weird.
Good. Why would you have thought anything different about it?
Right. And it was no, I agree with you, and I think it is interesting when looking back at it. I didn't know what the whole implication was, and to re-clarify the condom statement, the reason why I didn't know what a condom was because how old was I? That would have been 11 years old. 11 years old, I found out what a condom was, and because it was I called a urinal a condom by mistake, and I was made fun of in school because of that. And so, because my classmates knew, I didn't know, and I've actually felt that throughout my entire life. Is like when I'm a kid, it's like the other kids knew things that I didn't know, and I felt like I was always catching up to the rest of society because of us being in a cult. Like I do attribute that to the cult mentality, is because we were so separated from the world that like when I was in school, I felt like I was always playing catch up. So they all knew what a condom was, and I had no idea. And so yeah, that's anyway. That's
Interesting.
wow. I hadn't thought about that one in ages. Wow, talking about processing. I'll shut up.
No, that was good. That's really important stuff.
Yeah, that's
what
why
we're
we
doing
talked
here.
through it. Yeah.
That was like I was just like downloading right there. Wow.
Yeah.
But how do we determine, like, what does Armstrong actually mean here? That like we weren't what does he say? That we weren't sex conscious. Like, what is he
I
actually
wasn't.
referring to here? I
It's
would.
words that are gonna just mean whatever we feel like they mean to us. It's just he's just trying to say like, yeah, they're not thinking about that stuff, is what I
I
think.
was. I
It
was.
That's what I'm
I just didn't know
saying.
what
I
it
was
was.
too.
Yeah.
I was on the playground having like sexual fantasies about the young, cute little Latino boys on the playground. Like I imagined all kinds of like kinky stuff. So yeah, my mind went there. I don't know how young
Yep.
I was, but it had to have been elementary or first grade.
I was into BDSM probably by the age of 5. No, 4. 4. Still 4. Yep.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, but kids
Or-
are like kids do enjoy that. I think that's why we have BDSM, because kids think it's so fun to tie each other to the chair,
Right.
or
Right.
and so to me, BDSM is just like the grown-up vibe of that.
Yeah.
I had
more
sexual
parts.
fantasies that were actually developed probably around the age of 6.
It's just interesting how many like aspects of our humanity can kind of be worked out in a fantasy situation.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
we recognize their fantasies and we're not going to realize them.
Yeah, being able to keep separate the world of imagination from the world of reality is a pretty fucking good skill to have. And this is where I say, if kids are taught that God exists up in the sky where you can't see him, how the fuck are these kids going to know reality from imagination? This is a problem.
I actually found a YouTube channel that has I forget the name of it, but something along the lines of like Love is Blind or something, and talking about like all these different definitions of like love and like different relationships that go against societal norms and societal values. And I subscribed instantly when I found it, because it was like, to me that's precious. Like things where it's like, fuck what everybody else thinks. This is actually something I do consent to doing. And it's like, and if, as long as that is the case, like true, like what we've always been saying here, it's like true consent, then yeah, I have no problem with it. And I do believe that if we don't like it, then we do and we should shut up. Like unless there is a violent situation or something, like something where someone is actually not in a good situation.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, yeah, you mean with other people's choices with their own bodies?
All right. Tremendous importance.
Mm-hmm.
Let me illustrate further the enormous importance of these uncomely parts.
Uncomely.
Is it uncomely? Okay.
I don't know. I'm just the enormous importance of uncomely parts. Come the fuck on, Herbert Armstrong. Come the fuck on.
Let me illustrate further the enormous importance of these uncomely parts, which humans too often regard as less honorable, but on which the great designer has bestowed more abundant honor. Has anyone referred to their junk as honorable? What the fuck does that even mean? I have honor in my tits. I have honor in my hoo-ha.
He's just he's not in a land, in a place where he can do like temples that are a bunch of dicks, but that's the energy he wants. So he's just saying more abundant honor on the penis. Yay, penis.
Yeah,
I'm a
just
man.
the penis. Yeah, just the penis.
Conversely, if it is both male and female form, if it is all human form, then yeah, I would say the term honorable. In a religious context, of course. but I do appreciate it as something of great, honestly, and quite fervently, great beauty, and I do see a design in it, and I think it is quite marvelous, and it really
The
is
pee?
special when you look everything. Like
Oh,
what I'm
okay.
talking about with female as well, like everything. Like we were talking about the velvety nature of a woman, or like the way that like a penis can actually look. I like the shape of them, and it's like to actually marvel at how precious such things are that we often don't even talk about because of our prudish nature. And if but taking the words for what they are, I agree. I do agree that these things are honorable, and
I think we have prudish nature because of the Bible.
right, I agree with that too. I agree. I absolutely agree with that, and I do think it's a shame. And I do think that we as a society are going away from that. And yes, I do believe that means going away from what the Bible says sometimes, because I do believe that the New Testament was designed to let us go forth and develop further, not to be strapped to the New Testament anymore. Like we,
I
so.
guess I didn't read it that way, but okay, Joel, thanks for your take.
Sorry.
I
No,
just read it as though
Opposite.
Rome was like, hey, what can we do with all these things that people believe? What if we put it into a book to keep them all controlled? Because we have these new books that we're making instead
oh,
of
by the
schools
time
and board
Nicaea
games.
came around, yeah, absolutely. By the end of Nicaea, absolutely, yeah. Because I don't think it was really ever meant to be part of the Bible. I really don't think that the epistles were the ones that they contest in terms of like whether or not Paul wrote them. Yeah, that those might have been written to be included in the Bible, but I'm talking about the actual ones written by them. I don't think so. It was male. So it was just
It
male.
was.
It was,
It was male. It was the
it was
letters that
male. So anyway,
somebody in the ancient post office wasn't doing their job, and now
right.
word got out.
Certain experiments made in the interest of science, he put science in quotations, should teach us an impressive lesson, perhaps in the sight of the eternal. Such experiments ought not to be made, but men have made them, and the results are both intriguing and enlightening. As far back as history records, men have practiced castration. It is widely practiced today on animals, removing testes before male animals reach sexual maturity. You probably eat steer beef often and capon occasionally, just to name two examples. What is capon? Capon?
Probably
My
some sort of beef,
Yeah, my
like a
guess is
calf
a beef with testicles.
or calf.
Or maybe it is testicles.
Oh God,
Oh, I
let's
have
find
eaten
out.
testicles before.
Have you? I have some.
Rocky
Mhm.
Mountain oysters.
I have, yeah, Rocky Mountain oyster. I have some frozen goat balls in my freezer because I wanted to play a prank on a friend of mine. We were talking about balls and like people eating them around the world. So I was just gonna make, yeah, Rocky Mountain oysters for him and not tell him what it is. I'm a bitch. I'm a bad
Um,
friend.
so
You
that
have balls in your mouth
capon
now.
thing.
Of course, castration destroys reproductive capacity. No spermatoza or spermatoza. No spermatozoa are produced, but also the male hormone production is destroyed. And that is the striking thing revealed by certain experiments. Of course, the castration practice in modern stock raising is not done primarily to destroy breeding capacity. It is done to alter the appearance and behavior of the animal. Mhm. The stock,
Is I'm wondering where he's going. I'm gonna make a point. Keep going. I'm
okay,
wondering where he's going with this shit.
okay. The stock raiser does not need a bull for every cow. One
Mm,
bull can take care of the breeding requirements for a number of cows.
sure can.
Does that include male cows? Oh. But steers make fatter and more tender steaks. And if the steer is not butchered for meat, the animal, which uncastrated, would have grown into a wild bull, will, as a result of castration, become a docile ox willing
Oh.
to work.
Mhm.
The castration causes changes in bodily form and in the
Mm.
horns. Roosters and
Mm.
pigs are castrated to increase the poundage and therefore the profits.
Oh, that
Calm
explains
down.
it. My male cat is neutered, and holy crap, that boy is just like got some
Chunker.
junk in the trunk. That
Yeah, that's
explains
true.
it.
In males, that's true. If you castrate, so if you actually look at pictures of castrati, like the singers, like they have very interesting body shapes. And the same thing happened in China. They became more like you know how like women have like hourglass shapes sometimes? They became more like that, or like a pear. Like their hips formed in a different way. And
Like my male
yeah,
cat.
right, and it's like, and there's more weight in the hip area. It's like they take
Huh.
almost a female figure. It really is interesting because they never had enough testosterone to develop the male figure from the actual. Yeah, they had more estrogen.
In the Bible, you read of castrated humans called eunuchs. Middle East sultans and other rulers used eunuchs to serve in harems. The eunuch lost all sexual desire. The harem women offered no temptation. This is not accurate. I see. I know this. I remember, Joel. Okay, we'll get to it. They were once used at the papal court, said to be employed as singers because of their high-pitched voices. Eunuchs become obese without beard or normal male hair growth on the body. What do you want to say about that? Tell us about eunuchs, Joel.
Partially true, partially inaccurate. So yeah, that is true. We already talked about like the court eunuchs over in China. You have photographs of them. They don't necessarily become obese, but they do become more round around the hips. The castrati of Europe were typically obese, but the ones over in the East weren't always. They have more like rotund features right at the hips, like a bigger stomach and stuff like that, but not really anywhere else. Another thing is not all eunuchs were castrated, and actually the Hebrew word for eunuch, soris, can actually be, I think it's soris, but it can be used for non-castrated as well. So it essentially means a male that had a very high-ranking position within the king's court. And so that it could be like a guard of a prison, like in the case of Potiphar. Potiphar was referred to as the same term in Hebrew, eunuch, but it was clear he had a wife, Potiphar's wife, the whole thing with Joseph. So the term was interchangeable. So it's not always clear when it was castration or not. So they weren't universally castrated. So that also was a lot of gay people were selected for this role as well because of the harem situation. A lot of them were, but they were also probably castrated for good measure to make sure that they wouldn't be messing with the women in the harem. However, it is very well known, at least in the Chinese court, that there were a lot of sexual shenanigans happening among the eunuchs, and also among the concubines. Like they actually, there were things happening, and it was so there was a lot of mix up, but it was very well assured that they could not produce any child. So it was like, yeah, that base is covered, so there's no problem with that. That's all the stuff I got on that.
Well, can a eunuch still get hard?
Yes, there is, yes. It depends on every person who's castrated. It just depends on how it happened, if you can or not. It just really depends. But yes, you
Okay.
can.
Okay. However, even though castration is an age-old practice, much of the true importance of male testes and female ovaries was unknown until the experiments of Berthold in 1849. It had always been known, oh God. Okay. It had always been known, of course, that the comb of a castrated cock degenerates. We're talking about chickens. We're talking about chickens.
Yeah.
But Berthold experimented further. He removed the testes of cocks. This is very confusing. And then regrafted these testes on the cocks' backs. The combs remained the same as in all uncastrated roosters. All bodily appearances remain the same, but of course, all reproductive capacity was lost. Wait. So the testes got reattached, so the hormones were still there and like circulating then? It just wasn't like in the right place to do the reproductive part?
It seems like basically what happens with a vasectomy. It seems like exactly the same thing, except that we don't actually remove the testes and reattach them. But yeah, essentially the same thing.
Okay. I guess they
It
hadn't figured
looks
out
like
mass
it.
deference and stuff at that point.
All I'm
Okay.
saying is like all this talk about sewing the testes back onto the back of cocks. I'm
I know. Like, wait a second.
like, wait,
It's
what?
very confusing with modern parlance. Okay.
Can
This
is this AI trying to write some smut?
That's creepy. This proved that the testes serve a dual purpose. Many similar experiments have been made since. They prove that the testes and ovaries not only serve to reproduce one's kind, they also determine the sex characteristics of the individual. Well, not okay. I know he did not have the science to really understand this. Whatever. We're still working out our science of sex. It's fine. Some astonishing experiments were made by the scientists of Vienna, Professor Steinach. First, he castrated both male and female animals of the same species. They both acquired a neutral appearance, neither male nor female. But this professor went further. He exchanged ovaries and testes. Into castrated males, he grafted female ovaries, and into the females, the germinal glands removed from the males. The former males now took on female characteristics, and the former females acquired those of males. The former females now behaved as males toward the former males, and the males now took on the behavior of females. Former males even developed mammary glands and nursed the young. Of course, there is much more to the hormone story than this. Other glands in the parts of the body have their coordinating relation to bodily characteristics, such as pituitary, pineal, thyroid, and suprarenal glands. It is not our purpose to discuss them here, but what little has been covered about the hormones, it is hoped will be of interest. I mean, so this is how we make life better for trans people. Thank you very much, Herbert W.
I
Armstrong.
was thinking the same thing.
Because this is a great time to point out that we know, because of our studies, that the very best treatment for people with a gender dysmorphic disorder that is harming who they are and they feel not right, the very best treatment, the very best way to give them the best life, to stop all the suicides by people who are trans, is to give them gender affirming care when they want it. And that is what we ought to do. And as far back as whenever this was 1840, whatever, we understood that those made those changes.
This is my whole beef about like the whole gender affirming care in the how expensive is that shit? Like, is that really? No, and I'm actually like, because we're talking about like, are we paying it through Medicaid, Medicare type of situation, right?
Oh,
And it's like, is it really that expensive? Like to every
I think we should be
taxpayer?
taking care of everybody's healthcare needs
Right.
instead of making more bombs. But I know I'm a
Yeah.
radical like that.
I'm just sitting here going, does it really affect, like, how many people are going to get surgeries like that? Very, very, very few. It's a very small number. It's not as extravagant as it's made out to be. So how much does that affect each individual pair? A few cents, maybe.
Oh,
So
it would be a handful of dollars that
it's
would
not
provide
us
like all the
tithing.
needs for all the people.
Right. It's not like our tithes. It's not like our church's tithes.
Tithe is taking way more and doing way less than we could actually do if the people pooled what they had and worked together to make it better for all of us.
Right. But yet much more is put into, like you said, the military.
Yeah.
I told you, Nancy, about like how I knew someone who was like in the National Guard, and he could not believe how much money was wasted on the tank deployment. It's like we don't have tanks over there. So we actually take the tanks from here onto a ship all the way over. And they work on the same tank that they train but you see okay, you see my
Yep.
Oh yeah, rampant waste, rampant cronyism. Yeah, we're doing it wrong.
just
We're
I would
spending
call it
that much on
mismanagement.
when we spend that much on things to kill people, we're doing it wrong, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mismanagement.
Good way to put it.
Call it.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah.
I like what Carrie from the Clergy Project said, who we interviewed recently. He was saying, like, war should be the afterthought. It should be because you guys haven't figured it out, and it led to this. Not war is the solution for it, and then you come to a peace treaty, which is what it seems to be. Why couldn't you come to the peace treaty first before and avoided war and all these people that had to be killed?
Because war makes money for our GDP. That is why.
Or goddamn penis.
Yeah, that's the answer there, Joel. Well, you
The
can say it a
US
different way. It
penis.
makes money for top corporations and the elites who run them.
Yeah.
That's why war keeps happening. That's why war is the go-to instead of the last resort. I think the people need to rise up and say, no, this is of the people, by the people, for the people. Isn't that what we said?
Yeah.
And that
we
is
actually,
not how our corporate overlords are behaving.
hey, if the Messiah were to come, I do believe that's what the Messiah said. Yeah.
I think we have to be our own Messiah, Joel.
Oh, I like it. I like it. I like it. Yeah.
Me
I actually
too.
just watched a rabbi basically say exactly the same thing. I think it was like 2 days ago I saw him say it. It was, yeah, exactly saying we can do our own little mitzvahs with content like this. He was talking about content creators.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay. Shall I keep going?
Sure.
This is going to be a fun section. Marvelous temperature gauge. I know what this is about. Get ready for some shrinkage. Here we go. Marvelous temperature gauge. The question has been asked, why are the testes located outside the body? Fantastic fucking question. The great architect had a very good reason.
Really? I'd like to argue that point.
It's amazing. We can watch the evolution of it too. The men never learned this reason until quite recent times. The earliest account of it I have been able to find dates from 1950. Whoa. Scientists, it seems, stumbled onto this in making tests on animals to learn how long spermatozoa retain both their motility and their fertility at various temperatures.
They tortured the sperm. How dare they? I thought abortion, like pro-life people say that sperm is like actual humans, right? Like even though they're not.
I looked this up for the last episode when I was watching it for a review. The whole thing where he was saying that like the sperm is the living thing and the egg is not. It's literally fucking reversed. The egg is the living cell, and the sperm shows some qualities of living cell.
Almost like a virus. Yeah.
Almost like a fucking virus. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So Herbie literally had it ass backwards. And he was trying to use that fact to like diminish the women's eggs role. Like, he was wrong.
I came across that realization like maybe a year ago. I can't believe I forgot it. Yeah, that humans are essentially viruses because sperm, when what they do is they infect the cell with its programming. And so when it enters, it injects its program and it completely reshapes the dynamic of the cell. And
I mean,
so
that's what the aliens intended. right? That aliens needed to get that to happen so that we would decide that gold was really great, so that we could mine all of the gold out of the earth for them at like good little worker ants. And then when we're done getting all the gold out of the earth, they're going to come back and like take the gold and just be like, okay, fuck off now.
No, didn't you ever watch The Matrix? No, it's the complete opposite. We become their batteries.
Scientists, it seems, stumbled, or maybe I read this, onto this in making tests on animals to learn how long spermatozoa retain both their motility and fertility at various temperatures. Okay. Then in these experiments, the testes of rabbits were kept in a refrigerator. The
I'm
sperm
sorry.
cells remained. I know, sorry, bunnies.
I'm so
the
sorry,
sperm-
Bugs. I'm so sorry, Bugs.
The sperm cells remained alive much longer than when kept at body temperature. So next, they made tests on live animals to determine what happens in testes at various temperatures. They discovered that the temperature inside the scrotum was several degrees lower than body heat. They made an experiment on male mice in a hatching oven at 110 degrees. They found fertility drastically reduced and soon nil. So there you go. If you don't want to make a baby, just put your balls in an oven for a minute. Test now follow. Don't you actually do that? Nobody actually do that.
Andy
Test
Marsh
now
did
followed
in South
test.
Park. He put his balls in the microwave so he could get cancer and then get benefits.
Oh my God. Test now followed test. They were learning things. So they tried heating the testes alone with bodies at normal temperatures. This experiment was made on sheep, goats, and pigs. The same thing happened. Fertility rapidly reduced until there were no fertile spermatozoa. Finally, a Dutch scientist determined that the temperature inside the human scrotum is actually 6 to 15 degrees lower than body temperature. Well, that is quite cool, isn't it? Those balls are so cool. It took man
Why
thousands
do
of
they
years to
sweat
learn.
all the time? Oh my
I
goodness.
Great point. Maybe they sweat. Maybe if they're
Yeah,
normally 10
cooler.
degrees lower, then they sweat if they're just a little bit more than that. I don't know.
Yeah,
It
I
took
think so,
man
probably.
thousands of years to learn what the creator planned and designed. Finally, men learned that these colossal yet miniature laboratories are so designed that they require this slightly lower temperature to produce fertile life imparting cells for the reproduction of the race. Then they discovered additional proof.
This is really a
In the
benefit, or is this a drawback? I do believe if we're talking evolutionarily, this is a drawback.
Well, you would think, but he's just explaining this, like our explanation of how it actually exists so that he can sound fancy. So he can be like, yeah, see God,
Huh.
science, God, it's the same. I don't know. I don't know what he's
I
doing.
just think that evolutionarily speaking, that women actually have it where it's at, which is the inside the body. Just saying. Just saying. All on the inside, all the parts. All the juicy. But remember the uncomely parts. The
That's right.
the ones that needed the most care. Well, in women, they're inside the body, not in some little sack.
Well, but see, if it had been more evolutionarily advantageous for the sperm to like be able to handle higher temperatures, and that accidentally happened and continued on reproducing itself, well, then that's how it would be. That it'd be in the body. The sperm would have adapted to higher temperatures. We would have been rocking and rolling, literally.
A lot.
But that's not what happened. The
Nope,
sperm
it
didn't
is not.
change, but the body developed a sac. Like, it's just how evolution went. Like, come on.
Yeah. That's like the
Okay.
weird. Just same thing with like the giraffe and the blood vessel. Yep.
Right. That goes for some odd reason all the way down and all the way back
Right.
up when it wouldn't have had to. Yeah, exactly. Okay. In the fetal stage of development before birth, the testes first develop inside the male fetus, then descend into the scrotum some considerable time prior to birth through the inguinal canal. In all normal cases, male babies are born with the testes already in the scrotum, but it sometimes occurs that one or both testicles remain in the abdomen at and after birth. These infants are born with either a half-empty or wholly empty scrotum. Doctors today bring down the testes with a minor operation. Yet, when this was not known, there were cases where the testes remained after puberty and after marriage inside the body. Formerly, neither these men, nor for that matter medical science, could understand why such men appeared in every other way normal men they could marry. They had normal desire and ability for coitus, yet they could not become fathers. Their testes were normal. They did manufacture spermatozoa, but not fertile sperms. They were sterile. Today it is known that the cause was simply that these marvelous and mighty little factories generating human life do not perform their wonderful operation of producing life-imparting sperm cells at bodily temperature. They must be kept at a temperature several degrees lower. We're still not seeing how that's God's great design, but okay. So now scientists have at last learned something else. The scrotum, the sac which houses the testicles and epididymides, is made up of a kind of skin different from any other in a man's or woman's. It is a non-conductor of heat. Is this true? It is made up of folds. I'm made up of folds too. In cold temperatures, or if the man is bathing or swimming in cold water, I told you, get ready for the shrinkage. These folds shrink up and draw the testes up tight against the body, almost partially into it, lest the outside temperature become too cold for these marvelous little laboratories.
This is very similar. The base of your elbow is a very similar feel to a scrotum. The only difference I would say is that the skin isn't as thick there. So just imagine thinner skin with this, and it's almost exactly the same.
And do you know what this is called?
This is I forget, frenulum or something. No. That's what is it?
It's the weenus. This is your weenus.
That's right. I do remember that. Yeah. So it's the skin. Although
everybody
your
grab
skin,
your weenus.
the skin of your weenus, the skin of your weenus looks thinner than the skin of my weenus. So you can see here the skin looks pretty thick. I think yours is thinner. That's about the feeling of a scrotum. My supposition is that your weenus feels similar to what an actual scrotum would be like.
How do you spell weenus?
Wenis.
Joel, you know
really?
I've touched scrotums before, right?
Yeah, so have I.
I have my own.
I know, but
So,
the way you said it was funny. It was kind of like we've never touched ball sack skin before, which
Right.
obviously we have.
Talking about no, but I'm saying I touch mine every day. Every time I go to the bathroom, it has to be done. So I'm very well acquainted with how it feels. Oh yeah.
What you have to push it back?
No, you have to adjust. You adjust. Like if you put your pants on, you gotta adjust.
Well, yeah.
But it does feel like that. When I shave, like if I completely shave it, yeah, it feels just like the weenus. Yep. Just imagine a very, very hairy weenus.
Okay. I think we're gonna find out how this science is now supposedly God's great design.
All right.
But in very warm weather, they stretch out until the testes are dropped down to a more considerable distance farther from the warmer than normal body. Thus, this scrotum is not only needed to be on the outside of the body, it also acts as an automatic temperature gauge to keep these little life-germinating factories producing at temperatures proper for their work. If you think Mother Nature blindly, I love how he makes it Mother Nature, like God did this, not Mother Nature, so we're just going to patriarch it up too.
Yeah, he would die if the Jewish interpretation of God as a woman sometimes.
If you think Mother Nature blindly and without mind, intelligence, or knowledge planned and worked all this out, you are welcome to your ridiculous opinion. Oh, fuck off. It was not dumb and stupid Mother Nature. Really? It was not dumb and stupid Mother Nature.
Yeah, he said that. Are you surprised?
I'm not, but like, wouldn't he actually think that Mother Nature just wasn't even a thing? But here he's got to call it out like it is a thing, just so he can be like, women. Meh. All right, it was the supreme Father God.
What? Well, I mean, he doesn't believe that Mother Nature is actually a thing, although he might think that it's Satan. And
Oh, probably.
and if he does, I would be like, okay, Mr. Armstrong, if you believe in the Bible so much and you believe it is law, then what about that section of do not call anyone caca, which means idiotic or stupid or empty-headed or without reason. And what's interesting is, yes, that applies to humans, but the thing is, though, we thought we should apply it to every being. So I'm throwing that back in Armstrong's face. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Okay. It was the supreme Father God who instructed Christ, who spoke and commanded, and the Holy Spirit was the power that brought it into being. If you think evolutionary fable sounds more rational as a means of accounting for such wonders, well, of course, you are allowed your opinions, however far from fact.
Just really quick to clarify that thing about me saying raka. Notice in my content, I never call anyone stupid. I never once demean someone's intelligence. I do call them wackadoodle and stuff like that, but I never say that they're
Fair.
dumb or without a brain. Like, and I fervently believe in that. So him saying it, I'm like, yep, well, there you go. Now, ladies, you have had your time of speaking and having your voices heard, but now let the authorities speculate. These experimenting scientists, which is actually the title.
I know.
Now let the authorities speculate. These experimenting scientists deduce something further from their experiments. Their tests indicate that male sperm cells gradually lose both vigor or motility and also fertilizing power under the normal bodily temperature once deposited within the female body. Some experimenters insist spermatozoa retain power for fertilization only 48 hours, and that ova must be fertilized within 24 hours in the fallopian tube. Thus, if this were true, there is only a period of a few hours in any month when human conception is possible. This discovery, quote, led to the, another quote, rhythm cycle theory. I love how he's actually, like, not liking it. But this so-called method of Planned Parenthood has, in fact, produced quite a bumper crop of babies. I don't know if you understand the reference to bumper crop here. Bumper crop, bumper harvest, bumper.
I mean, I know generally that the idea is just it's like a big crop, like a big unexpected crop. But what's the origins? I don't know.
I do believe that this is coming from a biblical reference, like the concept of bumper crops, and we were talking about tithing and stuff like that. And it's like we were very much into them. There were times where there were bumper harvests and stuff. Anyway, so I might be wrong. I do think it's that was actually him trying to be like a see what I did there thing.
Okay.
But because we thought we were crops. Anyway. So we thought we were crops because of the Feast of Trumpets, the Feast of Tabernacles, the Feast of Weeks, the Feast of First Fruits, all that stuff. Anyway, however, the doctors and scientists do not agree among themselves. A European authority says this period of time is variously estimated. Some authorities think it is only from 24 to 36 hours. Others assume 8 or even 14 days. Taking into consideration the analogy of various animal species and practical experience rather than experimental research, I am inclined to believe in a long continuance of seminal vitality.
Okay, we actually know more about this now. It's it can be a few hours that the sperm survive, but it can be up to 5 days. And the acidity of the vagina it is shot into make some of that difference.
Don't eat pineapple. Men can eat pineapple, women can't. We should make that into a Bible law.
What?
So the adage is that if you eat pineapple before, then usually your cum will taste like pineapple or very sweet. And if you are a woman, and you were just talking about the acidic nature of the vagina, because pineapple is acidic in nature, I'm like, well, then I guess men should eat more pineapple, women should eat less, and that should become a biblical law.
But does what we eat affect the acidity of our vaginas? I suppose it does.
I would assume so, yeah, because I think it heightens our acidity, but it's minimal. I do know that it makes it sweet for some reason. Notice, women, notice this. Notice these expressions in the above quotation, typical of scientific language, as I have expressed in an earlier chapter, variously estimated. Some authorities think, others assume, and I am inclined to believe. Isn't
That's
that
because
what everyone
science is
does?
smart enough to know that we can't just be like, this is fact from on
Yeah,
high.
yeah, you can't know. Yeah, right. We are dealing here not with the authority of revelation, but with the speculation, opinion, and guesses of science.
Yeah, because you can't fucking know, Herbie.
I have told you guys how I literally have heard someone say that physics is of Satan. Like, what the hell? Like, what? Like, oh, quite literally, what the hell? Physics.
Physics is like the least esoteric science we have.
Holy
Holy shit.
no. Because the story was that like there was this guy who he came across who was into physics and then like became a Christian or something, and then the guy came back later and said, "Oh, how are you doing recently?" And the guy is like, "Oh, for some reason I opened my physics textbooks and I can't quite understand like what's happening anymore." And he goes, "That's God showing you that physics is of the." And he used that in front of an entire church, and I'm sitting here going, and I'm in the church, and I'm like sitting here going, personally, I claim no authority save that of God. I have seen charts in medical books generally available only to doctors. Oh, you precious, precious soul. And I have read many statements of experience which do indicate that pregnancy is possible at any time of the month. And so we have now covered the most important organ in the male generative apparatus.
Shall I read
Most
the
important.
female ones?
Do it,
Oh,
Nancy.
the female one. Oh, wait, no, I'm the male. I should.
No, I don't want to hear about a woman's body from a man. Thank you. All right.
Who is your OBGYN a male?
No. Nope. Trust women.
I just think it's very funny. I just think it's very funny how many men are OBGYNs. I think it's what?
I'm sure they couldn't possibly enjoy all those experiences though, so they have to. Yeah.
I mean, urology would be interesting. That's funny too, how there isn't a male specific branch of medicine. There is not a single one, but there is a female one. That is interesting because I do believe that is discriminatory. That's my personal.
Yeah. Well, most studies forever had been done on like white males.
Right. However, we don't have our own special branch. Right. True. Right.
That's because all of medicine was male. It's like Black Lives
I do
Matter,
understand
dude.
that. Oh, is it really? Because this is the thing. I do. Okay, this is actually something that may actually be necessary. I do see the need for all the division of the different branches of medicine, right? And urology is male focused on the male like genital system. However, we all know too that it can also be for females, and how OBGYNs do not see males like at all. And what I'm saying is like to me, I understand that most of medicine does come from male, but like with urology, for example, like to have like a male specific only male bodies have these types of situation type of doctors. Like I do believe we need that. Like absolutely specialized for that just as much as we have it for OBGYN. I do believe that we need it for men as well, instead of a combined practice.
Well, hopefully that would be a thing that we would get to that point, but I would push back a little bit. Like, I get the need for specialists, but I also think that we have so many medical things that are kind of missed as far as what really connects to what because
Yeah, I
because we've
agree.
got
Yeah.
everybody in their own little
Oh,
silos.
absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's why we need cross-racial and cross gender everything for just to understand everything. And I do really hope that we will get to the point where research won't have to be based on funding, and that can actually be based on like finding out like what makes us truly tick. Because we do have racial differences, but the problem with that is when we do start saying that, then people are going to be like, well, then some are better than, you know how that whole can of worms can go.
Right, but
Anyway.
it's using data points just like anything else we know about humans to try to figure out their medical needs, not yeah.
Right, right. Anyway, that's just me going off into a thing, and that I think Nancy is like completely tapped out at this moment. So I tried to try to shut up. I'll try to shut up. Try.
You know
You
what
guys
would be
should
great though?
reschedule. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, maybe you're not feeling good.
I'm not.
Yeah. I guess the thing I'm thinking about that is like we recognize that sex is a spectrum and the binary isn't as clearly drawn, even medically as we would like to think. So in some ways it would be best if we get to that point, not just necessarily honoring the women's body and the male body, but in fact, like taking into account the full spectrum of the human bodies. And, there's a lot more we could understand about the human body if we'd stop being like, oh, penis over here, vagina over here. It's like, hello, can y'all just like look at all those parts together and realize like these are all analogous parts that just like this developed this direction, this developed this direction, so they
Right.
can play nice together. Like, I don't know. But I
At
think
the moment
instead of
you say that,
separating it out, we need to instead have a
right, that's what it's weird. It's like,
doll.
how do you get there? Is because it's like you do recognize that there are differences, and then so you find those differences, but then you put that on like a smorgasbord of like other everybody else, and like kind
Right.
of
It's
do like
not
the comparing thing. But I see the danger in that comparison. The moment we start
right.
comparing it,
That's
that's
why
the
it's not,
danger.
these are the differences.
Yeah,
Here's all of my
right.
categories. It's like, oh, look, we actually just need to broaden the range of normal. I mean, that's not the right word to use, but we just need to
Or
make this a bigger spectrum, make this a broad, like a
right.
bigger bowl of everything
Like if
that
there's
we
this drug, will it have any contraindications for any of these? And if that is the case, then this drug is not a drug and we are not using it. And so it's like if there is any contraindications. So yeah.
So right, our contraindications can be more honed in because we can address like, oh, people with this hormone, um,
Right.
this set of hormones or these whatever, like this drug may interact differently with that, and it's so yeah. Once we know more about people and we've stopped
Well,
categorizing and instead fully taken on our spectrum of who we are, we're gonna
I think we're
have a
getting there.
yeah, we are.
I think in the last 100 years we've come this far. So I mean, hey, I really wonder what the next 100 is going to bring.
Let's
I
hope.
really do.
Now the female, I was about to say degenerative. The female generative system.
That was a Freudian slip. And it was real. You know it.
Shut up.
All right, female generative system. We come next to the equivalent system in the female. I am departing altogether from the method followed almost universally in the flood of books on the subject of sex in covering essentials of the sex organs. Instead of grouping the organs as two external and internal, male and then female, it seems more logical for our purposes here to describe them according to functional classification. The most important organs in the generative system of the female are the ovaries. Are they? They don't serve any purpose in my body, but okay.
They create. Oh yeah, because you don't want children. That's true. Yep. If you want children, yeah, they would be.
I think hormones that you need though still come from that.
Oh, estrogen. Yeah.
But I was referring to my fun bits. So
Well, I mean, estrogen would actually engorge your fun bits.
There are certain similarities between the female ovaries and the male testes, yet in other ways they are quite dissimilar. The ovaries are located on the inside of the body. They do not, like the male generative laboratories, require lower than bodily temperature to do their work. They are, like the testes, a pair located within the pelvis in the lower abdominal region, one on each side of the upper portion of the uterus. Also, like male testes, each ovary is about 1.5 inches in length, but they are more almond shaped. They are connected to the uterus by a pair of ducts called fallopian tubes. The little fallopian tubes. The ovaries produce the egg cells called ova, singular is ovum. When the ovum is fertilized by a sperm cell, it is the start of a new human life. But ova are produced very much more slowly than spermatozoa. A mature ovum is released from the ovaries about once every 4 weeks, alternating every other month so that each ovary produces a mature ovum approximately every 8 weeks. Each ovum is an almost round or globular. I've never heard that term, globular. Globular. Really?
Yeah. So it's globe. Comes that it becomes globular. It's weird. I'm gonna double check. I do remember learning this.
Like the shape of a globe, and yet it's
It would be right. Yeah. I would say gla. It's gla. Yeah. I just looked it up. Globular. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. You would think globular. It's globular, like a glob of something.
So they're about the size of a pinpoint, just barely discernible by the naked eye, if your eyes are really sharp. Yet, tiny as they are, each ovum is about 50 times larger than a spermatozoon. Spermatozoan. Sorry. As they are produced inside the ovary, each ovum is surrounded by and enclosed in a sort of a very tiny bladder called a Graafian follicle. This follicle is filled with fluid. As each ovum matures, enclosed in its follicle, it is developed in the outer layer of the ovary. This causes the outer ovarian wall to bulge. I like the term bulge. Then the Graafian follicle bursts, or rather explodes, its contents out into the abdomen. Ovum is caused to bounce out like a ball into the fringed or near funnel-shaped end of the fallopian tube.
I don't think it's at all like this. Go ahead. Go ahead. I have a comment. Go ahead.
Okay. Let me finish the section.
Yeah.
This fringed end of the fallopian tube, shaped something like a carnation flower, seems to open like an outstretched hand to receive the ovum, which is virtually shot into it. It opens only when an ovum is mature and ready to be released into it. This discharge of the ovum from the ovary into the fallopian tube is called ovulation.
All right, the female hormones. At this same instant, something else quite interesting and very important happens. The female sex hormone is called follicular hormone because it is formed within this membranous envelope of follicle. Only the infinitesimal round ovum is shot into the oviduct or fallopian tube. The follicular hormone is then released into the abdomen, absorbed into the bloodstream, and thus carried by blood to do its work in various parts of the body. I wonder what that means. Follicular hormone. That's not one I've heard of. So the hormone production in females is unlike that in males. It is formed in the female germinal cells, the ovaries, but not in the tiny islands among the tubules. He's pointing out that there's differences in being like, see, that's why the man is so much better. Yeah, they're just different.
Balls are in their bodies.
Ova are not formed in tubules as sperm cells are formed in testes. Instead of being developed in a system of coiled tubules, both ovum and hormone are formed near the outer surface of the ovary. No, they are not. We said it before. The eggs are all in there already. Okay, maybe they come to maturity near then, and I'm actually not sure about the hormones.
Is this something he just didn't know during this time period when all
I
this?
mean, yeah, we
Could be.
may just not have scientifically known all of this.
Right. A lot has been discovered like in the last 50 years.
I
So-
do think there are hormones made in the ovaries, though, because I know that's a reason that if they
Yeah.
can retain ovaries when they do a hysterectomy,
Right.
they do, so that it doesn't throw a woman into instant menopause. So I know that is the case. But anyway,
Yep.
okay. All right. In a sense, this membranous envelope formed around the ovum compares to the shell covering a hen's egg. I mean, kind of. When the follicle bursts and the ovum is bounced out of the ovary, bounced,
Ah.
it would quickly perish if it were not, in a fraction of a second, shot directly into the oviduct where an albuminous substance immediately protects it. And that, in brief, is the story of the sexual glands in both men and women. They are
Yay.
indeed miniature laboratories or tiny factories where, in a sense, human beings are being manufactured, or at least the germinating cells which start every human life. It is, when seen from the approach and through the eyeglasses of the revelation of the Creator, a fascinating and awe-inspiring bit of knowledge. But all of that knowledge is absolutely just as fucking fascinating without attributing it to something you can't see.
And that in a couple bucks, we'll get you a cup of coffee somewhere.
I heard this back in WCG days. It was probably everyone like covering their faces like, oh God, we shouldn't say things like that. It was the idea of like, it was like a couple getting married or something. And it was advice given to the couple. And it was never sweat the petty things and always pet the sweaty things.
I've heard that too.
Did I say that here before or do you hear it somewhere
No,
else?
but I heard it when I was young.
I love it.
Well, that brings us to the end of chapter, 9? Well, we did it. We made it to the end of chapter 9 of The Missing Dimension in Sex, written by Herbert W. Armstrong. We're not going to get to the sexy stuff quite yet like we thought we would, but next time we'll be on chapter 10, which is Fearfully and Wonderfully Made. Until next time, keep being inappropriate, okay? Okay, bye! Like and subscribe, everybody! Weenus! 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 Oh, I have a new chair. It's bouncy.
Oh, I'm sure you know very well how bouncy it is.
I know. Oh yeah, Nancy, we're on top again.